Hey everybody, it's Ron from Ron's Computer Videos. How are you doing this evening? I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing better than I was a couple of nights ago when I did a 3.5-hour live stream trying to apply some firmware to a Adaptec PCI SCSI card so I could use it with my Motorola machine that I've been playing around with recently. And I will tell you what, that was very taxing. It was very difficult to get that all going. So what I've done is I decided to invest a little bit of time and effort in by way of trying to improve things for the community. And so what I have done is I have collected all of the firmware and application drivers and tech notes and things like that that kind of go along with a lot of these Adaptec PCI SCSI controllers. And I now have them kind of all in one place out on our good friend Macintosh garden. And so I will tell you what, if you watch the stream, it was something else, because when Adaptec was bought out by Microchip, there were a lot of things that used to be there, like the old FTP site and stuff like that, that had drivers and utilities and things like that, and all the technical bulletins, and all that stuff is gone. It's just gone. And a lot of it is not out on archive.org because a lot of that stuff just linked to like FTP. And so it's just lost to history, except for the stuff that is kind of scattered around that people have, thankfully, at least archived. But if you don't know where to look, man, it's really tough. It's tough finding it all. So I went ahead and I put it all together into one little archive and stuck it out on the Mac garden. So hopefully it will help other people as they go through and try to do these things for themselves. So let's go over to the bench and let's take a look at what I did. Okay, here it is. I've got a new video capture solution for kind of these old Macs that this looks way better than anything I had in the past. So way cool. But anyway, I've got an archive setup that basically has all of these Adaptec drivers, kind of all listed in order. Some of this stuff comes off of Microchip's page. Some of this stuff comes off of a couple of web archives that I found. There were one or two things that are archived elsewhere on Macintosh Garden, but it's now kind of all in one place, which was the thing that was holding me up from being able to find stuff, because it would be like, okay, well, here's the 1.2 version of the control panel, but I've got the 2.0 firmware, and I've got to have the right control panel to go with the right firmware. Such a pain, but those days are done. So how about this? The card that I actually have in my Motorola StarMax right now is a 2940 ultra wide, so 2940 UW. So for fun, let's just go through and let's take a look at the firmware process, or firmware update process. But if you actually go out and look, I've got things organized to where it's like, okay, this works with systems 7, 8, 9, and then there's certain drivers and stuff that require OS 10, and those are in their own dedicated directories. Something else to know: not every firmware updater will work with System 7. Some of the newer ones, like especially when you get like version 3.0 and up, a lot of those will only work with System 8 and newer. You'll just have to experiment to see if whatever it is will work on your rig, and you might have to actually just temporarily boot up another operating system to update things, just in case you're curious. But make sure that anytime that you flash firmware on your device, that you are not flashing in a firmware that is going to cause you some sort of grief. Like I think that there are certain versions of the firmware that are not bootable, makes the card not bootable on certain machines. So you want to make sure that you don't put yourself in a bind by flashing in a newer firmware that might resolve one issue but actually cause you a much greater one. Something to know: a lot of these 4.1 level installers, it is advised that you don't apply them on clone machines. There's something about like the 4400 and like some of the PCI clone machines that just it doesn't work properly. So for fun, let's go ahead, since I've tested this out before, let's go ahead and let's reflash firmware version 2.5 on this card. So you can double click. If this was the only thing you had downloaded, you could double click it and it would just run. But I want to make sure that the proper version of the control panel runs against the proper version of the firmware. So what will happen on startup is when you go to flash the card, it will read the SCSI cards that you have in your machine. So like it identifies a lot of these Adaptec cards as PowerDomain, which is kind of a line that they did for Macintosh, and I think it's now spread out into other products, but at the time it was sort of, I think, the name that they used to designate that those things were Mac products instead of PC products. But as you can see, it's identified the card, and if you have a PC version of the BIOS on your card, it may say like unknown firmware or firmware not found or something like that. But if you try to run an installer for a card that's not supported, it is smart enough to give you an error message, so that way that you don't accidentally flash a firmware that's not compatible with your card. But your mileage will vary. Make sure to read. There's notes and stuff like that on all of these installers, so make sure you read the notes and know what you're doing before you actually proceed. But here it is seen my card. I already have version 2.5 of the firmware on there, but I'm going to go ahead and we'll reflash it just to show you. Now, when you click OK, all rockets go. Like it's gonna flash. There's no confirm. So just know what you're doing before you do it. Make sure you're not right in the middle of a thunderstorm and nuke your card somehow. But that's it. It goes through, flashes the ROM. For the new version of the firmware to be active, you do have to reboot the machine, so that way that it loads on the machine or on the Mac. But some stuff that you can check out in here: the PowerDomain control panel. You can adjust the termination and parity settings for the card. You can also, there are, I guess, some issues, timing issues that you can address here, where you can add some delay on your card as well. And then there are also some other options, like you can turn on Ultra SCSI and stuff, or you can have that off, I think, if you want more compatibility. Some of the newer firmwares also have options to sort of tweak the speed of the SCSI bus, and it just basically gives you a slider where it's like 5 megabit, 10 megabit, 15 megabit. 5 megabit for like absolutely the most backward compatibility, and then 10 megabit is kind of the default setting. I think if you wipe the firmware on the card, that's the default, and then you can slide it over to the 20 megabit if your devices support that, like you've got like some ultra wide drives or something, or some whatever on there that can take advantage of that. But that's really it. It's not too crazy. Again, I tried to organize everything sort of by the operating system that's supported, and tried to organize everything by the card model and all that. So hopefully that will work out. But if you are interested in downloading this for yourself, you can head over to the Macintosh Garden, and I have it archived out there. So I think all you really have to do, if you search for Adaptec SCSI firmware, that should be enough to get you where you want to go. But it's just one big download, and then I have all of the cards that I have the drivers and the firmware and utilities for. It's all listed there, so that way that it should be pretty easy to decide if this meets your specific use case. So anyway, that's honestly kind of it for the moment. I wanted to say thank you to everybody that came on the stream the other night. I know Steve showed up. He had some good advice. Everybody was being very, very supportive, and I really do appreciate that, because gosh, it was so frustrating just trying to dig and find all this stuff. So if you do have a Adaptec PCI SCSI controller that you've been wanting to kind of play around with, especially like for me, I wanted to be able to hook my blue SCSI version 2 up to my Motorola StarMax and do some benchmarking just to see how fast it is against the native IDE and all of that. So anyway, so I had a good time and I got everything done. So hopefully the effort that I put into this, someone out there finds it useful. So, but anyway, kind of like I always say, thank you for spending a few minutes of your evening together with me. And as I also always say, Apple II forever.